This is my impression of Yoda. He's just trying to die. He's just like, I'm going to die. And then Luke's like, well, you can't die. And he's like, I need to die. And then he's like, by the way, you have a sister. and Luke is like, what? And he's like, I can't talk. I must rest. And then he just like keeps coming back to life to be like.
To say things.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, Nate.
Bye. Make sure you close the door. Close the door so you can't hear what we're saying.
May the force be with you.
I really don't like to think of him sitting there listening and being like, they're so stupid. That's what I assume everyone does.
Yeah, they probably do.
That's not good for me to hear.
They probably don't. Like, I would imagine all of our friend sits there and is like, this is amazing. We know what friend I'm talking about. Yeah. The one that you haven't met yet.
The one that listens?
Yeah.
Yeah, the only one.
Yeah. So.
Thank God for that person.
Thanks, Josh.
Okay, so we finished the original trilogy. Danielle just confessed that when we were supposed to record last weekend, she instead went to get a beer with some friends.
Yeah.
So now we are... But that's actually good because I rewatched
episode 6.
I found myself having trouble retaining the information in episode 6. I felt like 4 and 5 I was so familiar with. It just, like, it came so naturally. With 6, I was less familiar with the storyline.
I have such a bad memory that I already forget some of the things that happened in episode 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. They cover so much ground. So much happens. That's how I feel about 6. Maybe I'm just, like, biased, but it feels like we go to more locations than any other movie.
This question is important. Do you think that the fact that it's called Return of the Jedi is because Luke came back to be or Luke was becoming a Jedi to reestablish the order? Or do you think that it's because Anakin returned from being a Sith to a Jedi? Like, what do you think the reason of Return to the Jedi is? Is it a Luke thing or is it an Anakin thing?
Well, I guess it's both. That's a really good point. I never really thought about it that way. But he does return to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about because obviously now we're just like skipping right to the end. But when that happened, honest to God, I'm embarrassed to say it, but I forgot that happened. Like, I was like, oh my God, that's right. He like saves Luke.
Do you want to know what I'm embarrassed to say about this specific episode?
What?
I don't want to say it yet. Oh, we'll get to the point.
Okay.
We'll get to that point.
I'm going to guess that it was when that happened, you felt feelings for Darth Vader.
I'm just noticing that I'm like feeling feelings for people that I shouldn't. I think that my feelings for Darth Vader showed that they were justified after this episode because he showed that soft spot.
Well, as soon as that happened, I was like, this is what keeps people like Danielle holding on to hope.
Yeah.
Like you and Luke, because he was like, there's still good in him. I can feel it. And it's like.
That's how I am. I'm always like, you know what? That person seems evil, but I can fix him. I can fix him. I told you. I said it last time or the time before. I don't remember.
The moment where he saves Luke and then he's going to die and he's like, take my helmet off. I want to look at you. And then Luke is like, no, you're coming with me. I was kind of like, that's a lot to quickly forgive and be like, let's go. Like, where do you think you're going to go? He just like made an enemy of the entire galaxy. Now you're going to take him and do what? Like
hide?
Yeah, but he's made all these enemies. And I thought about this too. Like if he took Darth Vader with him and he meets back up with Leia and Han, he has single-handedly wiped out Leia's planet, entire planet. So I was just kind of like, how do you explain to Leia and Han, like, oh my God, actually, he's good now.
But he's her dad, so maybe that's... Yeah. Because she's the only one left from the planet, so he could be like, look, I wiped out everybody that you know, but I'm her dad.
I'm your dad.
This is just all hypothetical at this point. They could have just changed his whole outfit, put a different CPAP on, different color... different robe.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the party that happened at Jabba the Hutt's house.
So do I. I really didn't care for it.
I feel like this movie is a great example of just because you can do this cool stripper, fun party, wild party, just because you have the ability to do it does not mean that you should.
When this was happening, I said, I don't want this. I don't like it. It doesn't feel right. And it takes me out of the world of Star Wars.
How many drugs do you think George Lucas was on when he conceptualized that party?
That's a really good point. Well, and there was one creature that was like a blue elephant. Do you remember seeing that? Mm-hmm. I really didn't like that one because I felt like it just looked like a stuffed animal.
Well, compared to some of the other ones, though, it's not that bad.
Yeah, but it just looks so fake to me. I was wondering like if you thought Han was, I'm guessing his brain was frozen so he had no consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no way that he was like
Dreaming?
conscious in there. Or maybe dreaming. Yeah. But it's weird that when he was thawed, he didn't ask, how long was I frozen for?
Yeah, because it could have been, because he couldn't even see. So
Yeah.
he couldn't see if people were 20 years older or it was yesterday.
He had no idea. And he, like, somebody said, oh, Luke's a Master Jedi now. And he was like, a Master Jedi? I'm out for a little bit and suddenly, like, everyone's getting delusions of grandeur.
He didn't know that.
He had no idea how long he was out for.
That's a great question.
I know. I just feel like it's those things where it's like, I like to critique writing like that where I'm like, what would people actually say?
Speaking of writing, I've noticed a lot of things that are being said in these Star Wars movies that are said elsewhere, and I don't know where they were said first. Like, as you wish, that said, is that a Star Wars thing or is that a Princess Bride thing? Who said it first?
That's a good question. Who came out first? When was Princess Bride released? 1987. But look at how I typed it in with all these. My autocorrect.
When was Pranz's Bride Deloise?
What's the name of the movie?
Star Wars.
Return of the Jedi. Not 18.
I just said Star Wars. The name of the movie is Star Wars.
1983. So Star Wars was first.
Wow.
And that kind of makes sense because it kind of feels like Princess Bride is a little bit more spoofy and maybe it was kind of spoofing that dynamic. Like,
yeah. My next note that I have written down here, Yoda MFing dies.
Okay.
What? I was not prepared for that. And when he dies, he was just up and talking, fine, walking around. Then within 30 seconds, he's like,
yeah, he's like, oh, I have to die. This is my impression of Yoda. He's like, he's just trying to die. He's just like, I have to, I'm going to die. And then Luke's like, well, you can't die. And he's like, I need to die. And then he's like, by the way, you have a sister. and Luke is like, what? And he's like, I can't talk. I must rest. And then he just like keeps coming back to life to be like,
to say things.
Yeah.
He went from fully functioning and walking around his apartment or cave or whatever that is to he couldn't like barely even speak.
No,
and then he just died.
It was so quick. Yeah. I mean, he lives for like thousands, hundreds of years and he dies within minutes. He's just like, oh, I gotta die. I'm gonna die. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna die now.
All right, I have to lay down. And Luke's like, I have a lot of questions. Can you just chill for a second? And he's like, I just found that so funny. Like the whole like, you have a sister. But I felt bad that like, because the first time I watched it, I was like, this poor guy is just trying to die. And Luke just keeps being like, Yoda, please, who's my father?
I mean, it is kind of an important question. It's not like he's like, how do you get to 7-Eleven?
I know, but it's just like this like great being is on his deathbed. And you're like, tell me about my family tree. And he's like, I'm dying.
Maybe he thought that he was faking it. I thought kind of he was faking it. I was like,
so
maybe he just doesn't want. Yeah, maybe he
Yeah.
just doesn't want to help this guy anymore. Maybe he just wants to live and eat his stew and
just like live in peace.
Try to grow out his hair.
Well, he made him feel guilty because he was like, oh, what a shame that, and Luke was like, a shame that I know the truth. And he was like, no, that you confronted him before you had completed your training. So I think he was still pissed at Luke for leaving in the first place. I think he died out of spite.
Wow. That he really is a woman.
But he couldn't, yeah. He couldn't resist though.
That's what a woman would do. Be so pissed at a guy. She's just
like,
die.
I'm just going to die so you feel guilty. Yeah. But then he couldn't resist. He had to like wake up to like tell him the drama. But then after when Luke is telling Leia.
Can you imagine dying? Be like, I'm gonna do this despite him. By the way, I slept with your brother.
Yeah, I know. But then when Luke is telling Leia.
It doesn't happen all guys. It's not normal.
It's not normal. It doesn't happen all guys. And it is a big deal. So then after, when Luke is going to tell Leia, like, so he gives that speech, right? He's like, the force is strong in my family. Like, my family is Jedis. If I die, there's one other. And she's like, stop talking like that. And he's like, the force is strong within me. It's strong within my father, and it's strong within my sister. and I got chills, like actual chills. And then I was like, oh my God, this is going to be like the biggest moment. She's going to be like, what? It's going to be like this big reveal. And all she fucking says is, I know. And I was like,
Oh, I have a question. Because she said, I've always known, or
Yeah.
whatever she said. Then why were you making out with him like yesterday?
yeah, that is kind of weird.
And then, kind of fast forwarding a little bit, later in the movie, when Han was like, you love him, don't you? And she was like, of course I do. And he was like, then I'm not going to stand in the way. And she laughed like, it's not like that.
Yeah.
It's like, bitch, don't laugh at him for
I
thinking
know.
that because
he
you
has
were
no
just
idea.
making out with him
Yeah.
yesterday. So
Yeah.
don't make him feel stupid.
I know, when that whole scene, I was frustrated with like the reaction, because when he was like, you love him, don't you? Clearly she knows what he's talking about. So a normal person would be like, yes, but oh my God, I didn't tell you. We're fucking siblings. Like, that's how you react.
Doesn't everybody make out with their brother?
Right.
That's
Like,
normal.
we just found out we're like brother and sister. Instead, she's like, well, of course. Like,
Yeah.
are you dumb? Like, do you?
Right.
He doesn't know what you're talking about. That was frustrating. But I thought that Princess Leia looked especially beautiful in this movie.
Yes, she does look different. And I actually started to like her a little more in this.
Because she's a bit softer.
She's maybe that's it. And now I'm kind of mad that like the next episode, now I'm starting to get on board with her. I know that she's going to try to move forward with Han, not Luke, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of getting into the storyline now. And now we have to go backwards.
And then you never, I mean, you see these people again, but it's a completely different situation.
Jeez. Do you think those teddy bear people, okay, so behind the scenes, do you think that it's children in those costumes, or do you think that it's little people in those
That's a
costumes?
good question.
Because they're pretty little.
It's a good question.
I actually like the little bears, but I had a discussion about this with my friend, and he was like, they're terrifying, and they could rip people apart, and they would, barbecue people and mass murder people. And I'm like, I felt like they were only dangerous because there were like 1 billion of them and they could jump you or whatever.
I don't find them terrifying.
Me neither.
I thought you were going to be pissed at C-3PO that he was like, they're about to be killed by these teddy bears. And then they were like, do something, like tell them not to do this, because they think that he is like a god. And he was like, oh, it's against my code to impersonate a deity.
What's up with that?
And I was like, oh, Danielle's going to be so annoyed.
Oh, I was so angry. It's like, you're doing this to save yourself and also your friends.
Yeah.
So don't be such a little jerk.
Well, I was thinking about it, and like, why does C-3PO have so much? Why does he have emotions? Why is he's like programmed to be anxious?
Yeah.
Like, it's really weird that like a robot who is programmed and has like special, like, I can't do this because of my programming, can feel fear.
So I guess whoever programmed him.
Yeah. So I just found that interesting today when I was like rewatching it, and I was like, why, when they were running away in Jabba's lair and he was like, we shouldn't be here. Oh no. Like, he's running from these creatures. And I'm like, you're a robot. Like,
So he shouldn't feel those emotions.
Yeah, I don't
He
know
should
why
just
you're
be
feeling fear.
all business.
exactly. That's my thought.
Darth Vader dies?
Yeah.
I really thought he was going to be a bigger part of this whole story, which I guess if we're going to end up going backwards, he will be part of the story. But like,
Yeah.
I really thought we were going to see a lot more old evil Vader.
It's kind of crazy how short-lived all of that is.
And it's kind of crazy that the two big characters that died in this movie, Luke was there when they died. Like, basically,
Yoda and Darth.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it was essentially in his hands that both of these characters died.
Luke has seen a lot of death
Yeah.
in these 3 movies. When Darth Vader removes his helmet and dies, and you see his face, it really threw me off, because that's not how I picture him, because obviously I picture him as James Earl Jones. Like, how can you not?
Yeah. I questioned wanting to marry him when I know that
You
sounds
saw him?
superficial, but when I saw what he actually looked like, I was like, whoa.
Well, he is an old man. He's like 60. He sounds like he's like 42, but he takes his mask off and he's like nearing 70. And that threw me off.
Yeah, I questioned, but then it goes back to like, then who am I going to marry if it's not Darth Vader? Nobody else wants to marry me.
Darth wants to marry you? I'm sure Jabba would have you.
That's fine.
Luke would be willing to marry you, but you don't want him because he is a nice guy.
Yeah, that's true.
You would get bored of him so fast. You eat him up.
I would destroy him.
Yeah.
So now what do? Just go for like a stormtrooper or something?
Yeah, they humanize stormtroopers in the following movies. They really do, and I like it because you see these stormtroopers as these like robotic, militaristic, like no brain, just action, and then 2 other stories like are about a stormtrooper.
Just one?
Well, 2 separate, like Rogue One. There's a story about a stormtrooper, and then in like 7, 8, 9.
Okay. I feel like the Empire is like, do you remember when we were kids and your parents would get the thing in the mail for that CD club where it's like, hey, we want you to be part of this club and you can get a CD for 99 cents. And you're like, I don't want a CD for 99 cents. And they're like, yeah, you want a CD for 99 cents. You're like, no. And they're like, how about buy one, get one free for 99 cents? You're like, I don't need that many CDs. And they're like, how about we just give you all the CDs? Do you want to join our club? That's how the Empire is trying to get people to the dark side. Like they'll do anything.
Oh, yeah.
Because Luke was like, I'm not going to join the dark side. I'm here. I'm this. I'm training to be a Jedi. And he just kept pushing him and pushing him. And it's like, I don't want your damn CD club, even if they're BOGO, unless you have the Weird Al CD.
I don't know anything about these CDs.
You don't remember the
This
CD
did not
club?
happen to me.
You didn't have the, oh my gosh.
What year was this happening?
1942?
Oh my God.
You know, the year the CD came out.
That just missed me a bit by a couple decades.
We're all over the place here.
I know.
I feel like this is the episode that Disney saw and was like, we want that. We want this in our franchise. How much money can we make over all these characters and all these weird things? And then the cool party at Jabba the Hutt's house. And there's all this like kind of cool, there's these like fun things that we didn't have in the first 2 episodes, I feel like. But
yeah, you're probably right. This one feels the most Disney, but I don't like that. Like I don't like all the teddy bears and all the like stuffed animals. I don't like that. And like the singing and the song.
yeah, I feel like of the 3 that we've watched so far, this one has been my favorite.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
think
what I
so.
said in the last episode. I said this one is so fun.
Now, I use the word favorite loosely because it's not like, I'm trying to think of a movie that actually is maybe my favorite. The Lion King. I've already mentioned that once
Oh, wow.
before. Yeah,
Okay.
that's probably my favorite movie.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, how would you rate each movie so far?
The Lion King?
No.
Okay.
Star Wars.
Okay. I would say Return of the Jedi, number 1, A New Hope 2, and The Empire Strikes Back 3.
Stripes Back.
Stripes Back.
So the middle one you like the least.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's the least memorable.
Of these 3?
Yeah.
And I'm not looking forward to what's ahead because I keep just hearing these horror stories.
I think it gets worse as it goes. Like,
I feel like if we're sticking with these 3, this trilogy, I could see where people in the 80s or 70s or whatever saw these 3 movies, 70s, right? Mm-hmm. 70s into the 80s. Mm-hmm. They saw these movies and they were like, this is the coolest thing ever. I could see going to the movie theater as a young person and seeing Return of the Jedi and just thinking that it's so cool.
oh yeah.
But me sitting on my couch with my dog on a Monday night or whatever it was just okay.
Wow.
And I think it's because it's 2024. But if it was 1970 whatever or 80 or whatever, when did we say it came out?
70 or 80s. I don't know the exact year. But I think it's the way you're watching it too. Like if you were having like a movie night with a bunch of people and you were like having drinks and like food and everybody was like, let's do like a Star Wars marathon, then like that's a very different vibe than like, all right, I gotta watch this before I go talk about it.
Yeah.
It's smart.
See, these notes actually that I have written, the bold notes are my non-sober notes. And the non-bold ones, you can see there's a lot more bold.
God. Wait, can I show that? These are Danielle's notes from the one movie. That's a full page.
Yeah. Don't read it. You're going to spoil it.
Yoda MFing dies? How pissed do you think Luke was when he found out that Leia was his sister? You think he was pissed?
I think so, because I think he liked her. So it's like the equivalent of like getting a crush on someone and finding out he's married or he's gay or something. It's
Right.
like, are you kidding me? I don't think Harrison Ford's acting was all that great in this episode.
I completely disagree.
What?
Okay.
I thought you were going to say I completely agree.
No. There were multiple times where I was like, especially for like the 70s and 80s, I thought it was like a very non-cheesy way to deliver the lines.
So when he became unfrozen, when he thawed,
Yeah.
and he was like, he couldn't see, I thought that acting was so terrible. He was like,
Oh.
I can't see anything, guys. And I'm like, what is this, acting school? Like
Really?
he did not seem.
But he was like, I can't see anything. Like he sounded more scared.
I think Harrison Ford is a great actor. I'm not saying he's not. I've seen him in other thing. I think I saw him in Shrinking.
Something else for sure.
Yeah, I saw him in Shrinking.
What's
He was great.
Shrinking?
It's a show for another time we could talk about. But this specific episode, not even the other two, this specific episode, I did not like his acting.
Okay. I'm gonna watch again with more of a critical eye.
Okay.
How would you rate this episode out of 10?
As far as like a Star Wars 10 or an overall 10 for like if 10 being my favorite movie?
Overall.
4?
Oof. That's rough.
I'm not sure that anything's going to get much higher.
How
than
would
that.
you rate A New Hope?
3?
What? Oh yeah, that's when you said you liked more.
And then I don't know though, because if what's ahead is what I think is going to be, well, it is like I'm already pretty low on the scale.
Well, then I wonder if you'll like 7, 8, 9 a lot.
I don't know. I have no idea what's even going to happen. Does Darth Vader come back?
He does not come back, but sort of like the new evil. I think you're going to be shocked by who the next evil person is.
Okay.
Don't look it up. Don't get any spoilers. But if I told you right now, I guarantee you would be like, what?
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like actually kind of hard to resist.
Okay. Is it somebody that I already know?
Uh-uh.
Oh, well.
Oh my God. I really want to tell you.
Well, don't tell me.
Don't look it up.
I'm not. I'm trying to look at my notes to see what else I
Be
want
in
to
the
tell.
moment, Danielle.
At the end of the movie, when it showed the ghost characters, so there was Obi-Wan and there was Yoda, was the third person that was there Anakin Skywalker? Mm-hmm. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because Darth Vader had just died. And then all of a sudden this person that kind of looked like Luke Skywalker was there. And I was like, is that Anakin or who is that?
Yeah, it like reverts back to his younger form.
To his non-evil form.
Yeah. To the last time he was evil. But this is what I was trying to figure out. That movie was made decades before the actual Anakin Skywalker was cast. But it looks a lot like the guy who played Anakin.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, parts of this were my favorite movie of the original trilogy. But I think, I don't know how to describe it. Because I feel like it is the best movie, but I feel like we have the least to say about it.
Because there wasn't anything that I want to like bitch about totally.
All there is to say is Danielle has finished for the first time in her entire life watching the original trilogy of Star Wars. And overall seems a little just,
And now I don't have anything to say when I'm in a group of people and they're like, tell us something interesting about yourself. Because my go-to thing was I've never ordered chicken nuggets from a fast food restaurant, which I did recently. And I've never seen Star Wars, which I now have. So what am I going to... There's nothing else that's interesting about me.
Why don't you say, my interesting fact is that I am secretly in love with Darth Vader. Like, I have an unhealthy... If given the choice of what character to marry in Star Wars, I would choose Darth Vader.
Is that interesting?
I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting.
You don't think more people? You don't think there's people out there that
I don't
agree
think
with you?
there's a person.
Really?
No.
You think I'm the only person that would choose Darth Vader?
If I was in a room of 50 people,
You're like,
and-
I would never hang out with 50 women.
Yeah, I would never. I've never been in that situation. But if there were 50 people and I said, out of Luke, Han, and Vader, who would you choose to marry? I think literally you would choose Darth Vader. I can't imagine anyone else doing that. Like, that really surprised me when you said that.
Really? I didn't realize it was that big of a thing.
I just don't think anyone's ever thought of Darth Vader in that way.
I think I have a really good eye to see the good in people because he ended up being like caring and being good. So I think I can see that in people. I am glad that this trilogy ended on Return of the Jedi because I felt like it was a good arc. We had New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back. This was a great way to end the trilogy.
All right, well, original trilogy is over. 1 through 3 is done. No, sorry, 4 through 6 is done. Mm-hmm. We're moving on.
May the Force be with you.
Is that your new thing? Like, you're going to keep saying that to people?
I keep saying it to people, hoping somebody will say, and also with you back to me.
No one
and
does
I'm the
that.
only idiot
We're
that
not in
does
church.
that.